Well, hello, Sandy.
Amy, happy podcast morning.
Happy podcast morning. How are you doing?
You know what? No complaints. It's for it being February. It's beautiful weather here. I mean, the only complaint is we don't have enough snow to play in it. How about you?
Oh, yeah, same. Well, not that I want snow, but it's turning really nice here. It's supposed to be in almost 70 on Wednesday. So we've got a couple of weeks of 60-degree weather, 50, 60, and I'm like, I'll take it. It's
Hey,
exciting.
hey.
Yes. So today we're talking about midlife crisis or midlife celebration. What do we want to talk about? Because it's a little bit of both. I think there's two extremes. Like you can be looking at it like, oh, it's a crisis, or the opposite. The other extreme is the celebration, midlife celebration.
Well, my positivity friend Amy, I say we go for celebration and then we bring in tidbits of crisis. We're going to turn
Right.
the crisis into a celebration.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk about midlife celebration. First, what's the definition of midlife? Like, where are we at? Is midlife?
Oh, I keep pushing it up the older I get. You know, it's funny. I'm going through a lot of old memorabilia. I'm constantly sifting through things, and you know, I I wrote an article when I was in high school about what my life was going to look like, and I was going to be retired and elderly by 58. 58 was elderly, midlife was 30, but it keeps kind of edging up. And then I remember thinking when I was not thinking, saying when I was 50, I'm at my halfway point. And all my like older aunts are like, oh, get over yourself. You're so past your midway point.
That's pretty funny. That's
So what
so
do
true.
you think is midlife?
Well, it's interesting because, when you think midlife, you think half would
Right.
be mid. And I know my family averages living to 70s, 80s, kind of, if nothing strange happens. So midlife for me is probably 40, and I'm well beyond that. But I do feel like I'm just entering midlife. It's kind of a weird, yeah, I don't know why that is.
It's a phase, and I don't, not a phase, it's a part of your life. And I honestly don't think it's so much of an age. For me, it really was once the kids were done with school and
Yeah.
they were adulting, because I didn't, if there was a midlife before that, I sure wasn't thinking about it. And there weren't big enough bodily changes to make it so physically, I didn't feel a lot. I tell you, until my mid 50s, the physical things early to mid 50s started hitting. And let's see, I would have been 50, right? Maybe 51 when Grant was out of the house. But so for me, it was probably at about 50 where I felt midlife, but it was the circumstances physically and emotionally for me that made me take a breath of fresh air.
So I think that's a really good point because midlife, I agree with you. Midlife kind of hit when the kids were all out of the house and we had some liberty to make decisions that only affected us for the most part, not our children. So it was like, oh, we have some money. What do we want to spend this money on? And that would be somebody would say, oh, they went and bought a car. That's a midlife crisis, but if you have a little, because you tend to have a little bit of extra money at that moment, you tend to be able to move to Kansas City. Like there's a lot of things that you're not staying in the same place for other people, your children, and so you can do different things. And so I do think you're right. It's kind of like a phase that you're in.
And there's different ways to think about midlife crisis, because I am going back now and saying, okay, we're definitely in the midlife celebration, right? I feel like most people that are my age that I spend time with, it is a celebration. They're able to do things that they weren't able to do before and think about themselves without feeling selfish, right? And enjoy life. And it was an article that brought the celebration, the midlife celebration come to mind to me. And I tried to find the article and I'll look again. It was either New York Times or Medium, but it was a lady whose daughter who was high school, college age. She was doing the typical, "Oh, when I was your age, I didn't get a ride everywhere." And her daughter said, "Oh my gosh, you become that person. You're old and oh my gosh." And she got to thinking, and the story was about how really she's like, "It's a celebration of life. I'm not going to look in the mirror and say, what have I become? I'm going to celebrate what I've become." And that's where it came from. But the real midlife crisis, when you brought up the car, there was a lot that did happen with those milestones of turning 30 and 40, where people would look and say, our age, when we were that age, or we'd experience it from the outside looking at other people. What have I done with my life? Oh my God, I'm 30 and I hate my job. I'm in a bad marriage. I haven't had kids yet. So there is a lot that came up with the midlife crisis of somebody young who wasn't feeling young anymore, that was second guessing their achievements, right?
Right. Yeah. And second guessing their choices. It's just
Right.
like, oh, here I am, and this is where my choices have led me. Is this where I want to be?
Do you think, Amy, the psychology of it too is us being 50, that's yet another milestone? But rather than saying, oh my gosh, okay, what am I going to pivot to? Am I doing the wrong thing? Kind of those choice that ship has sailed. I like to say that. Either you had kids or you didn't. You're probably not going to launch an entirely new career, maybe, right? But usually it's saying, okay, with the choices that I made and where I'm at, how am I going to embrace it? Rather than that decision point of feeling like you've got a gun to your head to choose, right? And correct.
Yeah. So I will tell you, I think I probably hit a midlife crisis. Or midlife, maybe I'll call it an opportunity. I don't know. When I turned 50, I remember, so my dad passed away at 60. Like he was 60 years old and had cardiac arrest. And I remember when I turned 50, it hit me that I may only have 10 more years. And it was just a moment of, okay, what do I want my last 10 years to look like if this is my last 10 years? And I've been reading this Untethered Soul. Is that what it's
Okay.
called? The Untethered Soul. And I think that's what it's called. Have you read that?
Uh-uh.
Oh my gosh. I started out beginning and I was like, eh. And then through it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. But one of the things that they talk about is, okay, we're all going to die, right?
Yep.
So, and we don't know when, we don't know how. It could happen instantaneously. Okay. If you were to say, okay, if somebody was to tell you you're going to die tomorrow morning, you're not going to wake up. Like, what would be how would you feel this evening? Like, what are the things you do? And then they said, like, say you had a week and you said to God, you're like, oh, can I have more time? And God would say, all right, you had weeks before and you didn't make the most of those weeks. So what are you going to do different this week? So I was like, listening to this perspective was kind of interesting of, you're right, it could happen anytime. And the point is to celebrate every moment, celebrate your relationships. And one of the things in this book is letting energy flow through you
Okay.
and not holding on to it. So holding on to it would be that little voice in your head, like something pops up, like the guy pulls out in front of you, and you're like, voice in your head, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that. And you just keep talking to yourself and you're angry. So letting that flow through you,
That's a
release
great,
it,
it's a great
right?
strategy.
Yeah. And then you can enjoy your time, enjoy, and you get to choose to be happy. So anyway, this Untethered Soul, it's actually a good book. And I was reading it today thinking, oh, this kind of ties to the midlife celebration and choosing to celebrate and not choosing to see it as a crisis and see every ache as, oh my gosh, I have an ache, and like keeping it in your head and that self-talk of negativity.
I love the choose to be happy, the choose to celebrate, because it is so easy as you age at any milestone to say, that ship has sailed, or oh my gosh, so much for wearing short shorts anymore. I've got those little dimples in my leg, or oh, every picture has the chronic wrinkle between my eyebrows. And it would be so easy to focus on those things, right? And things like now, I'm training for a half marathon. I am slow, and I'm slow. I look back, it's just part of life. And I don't feel like I'm slow, but comparatively for the times, it's a lot slower than when I ran 15 years ago. And rather than focusing on that, I think in my head, how lucky am I that I can still run, that I can still do this, that I'm out doing this. And, I'm in the top tier. And again, I run with ladies that are 80 years old, that sometimes are the only ones in their age group. And it could be like, wow, you won your age group and there were two ladies, but I'm thinking, wow, think about what percentage of women that age are still doing this. I mean, that's incredible. That's winning the race of life, right?
Right. Well, and one of the things in this book is, what does choosing unhappy do? Like, does it achieve something? So I am a slow runner. All right. So I'm going to choose to be unhappy about that. Does that make me a faster runner? No, it doesn't. It just is all in my head of this unhappiness. It does not change what's actually happening. And that was one of the points of the book is, whatever you're doing in your head, it's not actually changing what's happening or happened, because usually it's stuff that's happened or happening. Not going to change that. It's only what it's the choice of whether you're going to be happy about it or you're going to be mad about it.
I think the only positive to being unhappy is if it pushes you to make a change. And this is coming from a Pollyanna that I can say by being overly optimistic and happy. Sometimes I think I covered things up, right? And allowing myself to feel unhappiness, as long as it was followed up with action to change it, that's the only time I can think of a positive in allowing yourself to be unhappy, is recognizing that you need to change it.
Yeah.
You
Do
can't
something.
live in a state of unhappiness. You shouldn't.
Right.
It-
Yeah.
that is such a waste of valuable time and energy that it isn't worth it. We can all
Right.
make choices to make things better. They might not be perfect, but they can be better.
Yes. Yes. So I found an article today. It just came across, I think, the universe just knows that we're talking about these things, and things come across my feed. And I'm always like, oh, wow, look at this. It is a lady who was celebrating her 70th birthday and was trying to figure out how to do something different, because she's like, at 70, I don't want presents, I don't want all the, I don't need all that stuff. And so what she did is she sent an email out to her friends and everything, and she said, what I want is 70 experiences this year. Your job is to invite me to do something, and my job is going to be to say yes. And so I know all of her friends, they were stepped up, and she was like, she did all of this. She started listing all this stuff, and she actually didn't get it all done in a year. So she carried it over to the next year, because I think 70, she was like, how many is that a month? Anyway, it was more than a handful a month.
Yeah.
So,
Because that would be more than one a week, right?
right. Yeah. And so it was,
1.2 or something.
yeah. So she was hard to do some of the stuff. But anyway, I was like, what a great approach of, instead of being 70 and saying, oh, I'm done, like, I should probably take it easy and stay, relax or whatever. It's more of a, okay, I need to go experience things, keep experiencing things.
I love the whole experience. I mean, that's something I savor and love in life right now. And when you talked about what you do if you knew you had a night, a week, it'd all be about experiencing and communicating to the people I love that love, right? And the gratitude for the relationships. One One thing I'd love to get your thoughts on we're talking about midlife crisis and going back. Think about the 40th, the 30th birthdays, okay? And think about, I'd be curious back then what your outlook toward life and what you were thinking versus where it is today. You know, the worries, yeah, how did that mindset shift from then until now? You don't know what you don't know, right? So for instance, I keep thinking about, and I know you're similar with this, I was always very goal oriented. So I wanted to be a partner by the time I was 30. I wanted to have my kids wanted to, by the time I was 40, I wanted to be able to have so much money saved. There was always a goal, especially I tell you, even 35, there was always, if a birthday came up, it wasn't to me, oh, I hate this birthday. I would feel pretty darn good because I had achieved things early and I'd set a goal for myself. And I don't want to say I don't struggle with goals. Garrett and I just had this conversation last night, but as you get older, you don't have those big, glorious goals. They're just not as attractive to you. So then you look at yourself and say, shouldn't I have these big, powerful accomplishments, or should we be enjoying what we accomplished before? So that's about 20 questions in one. You pick one.
No.
You pick one.
I was sitting there, my
30
head.
again. Tell me your thoughts.
So that's such a good question. So why do we have to have goals? Like, I guess that's my big question of why do we need goals? Why can't we just be? And I know this is very philosophical, right? You're looking at me like,
No,
wait a
no,
minute.
no. I've got an answer. I'm holding it. I'm trying to be a good listener.
Because I'm just, you know, yeah, I don't understand. And I get it because I am the same as you and I have goals and I'm constantly trying to reach those goals. But why? Like, what's the purpose of that?
You just said the word. I
Purpose?
believe there's a core human need is to have purpose. And back to midlife crisis. Now we're kind of reining it all in. Why do people have a midlife crisis? And let's just say midlife crisis 30s, 40s, right? Where the goals are really a driven thing at that time. It's because they want to, you want to feel like your life has purpose, right? That what you're doing has purpose and has meaning. And so by setting goals, you're achieving, right? And so you're fulfilling that purpose. And I think for me, back to positivity, I never really had the midlife crisis because I was constantly fulfilling that purpose and not second guessing it because I'd set these goals, right? I'm not that way now, Amy, at all. And my birthday, I was out with some ladies said, what are your goals for the next year? And I mean, I've got goals for today. I'm training, I have goals for now. Back to my sheet, right? I have for my well-being, the programs I'm doing, the runs I'm doing, the activities I'm doing. But I don't think in milestone goals of what do I want to do before I turn this age or this age, like I used to. And I don't know where that transition happened, but my purpose is in the day. I live much more in the moment. And I think that's part of our midlife celebration is we can define our purpose in the moments more than the milestones.
Yes. And that's kind of what I was trying to get to of the purpose doesn't have to be a big goal.
Right.
Purpose can just be to enjoy the people around you or, whatever it is, but we don't always have to have that big goal.
And it can be a daily task. Part of spending time with my father-in-law, when he lived with us, and he doesn't anymore, but something that I learned that I did not understand before then is everybody needs purpose. And he used to say to me, I've got no purpose. I need something to do. Well, when he had it, you would think that by me doing everything for him, by him living with us, by having no responsibilities, woo, I got this. He missed having a garden. He missed having tasks during the day, going to the you know, these things, he lost his purpose. And so him living by himself, he's been able to regain the purpose and those tasks. Not having anything to do is not a good thing, right? And but there's different levels of that. I think back to, let's just go back to our 40s when things were crazy, right? Before the kids had driver's license, basically. You know, we had a million goals, and then we had goals for our kids, and we had to perform as parents. And I think it's just the nature of where you're at different points in life. So we don't need big, you know, boisterous goals now, but you got to live them in the moment, right? I think you exactly what you said. Why do we need to have those? We need to have purpose, but we can show it and have it in different ways. And we need to always reassess and say, am I going through the motions, or am I doing things that are purpose filled?
Right. Yeah, the book I was reading, they talk about the extremes. And so staying out of the extremes, and so that you can kind of stay in your sweet spot. So you don't have, and I'm kind of trying to apply this to goals. Your goals aren't driving only, you're balancing your goals with your not having goals. And so it's not, you don't want to be all the way down here not doing anything and not having any purpose, but you
Right.
don't want to all the way over here where you've got a goal for every single minute of the day and you have nothing to balance that with. You just have goals.
Right. Right. And maybe, yeah, midlife celebration is celebrating life all the time. And part of it is back to your midlife, wherever we're at, we don't know. We don't know if it's midlife, 90% life, 80% life, but that is the whole perspective of what's left is so different than thinking, I've got 10 years of work left. I've got 5 years until the kids graduate. It's a whole different mindset. And I always think about my mom making the comment about, she was probably my age or a little bit older, and her parents had just passed away. And she and my dad looked at each other and they said, now we're the old people. You know, that it's just like we're up, it's us. And it's a different mindset because that midlife is now the rest of my life, not the next milestone. It's how do I want to spend my time now? And I don't mean that to be a Debbie Downer. It's just, it's, yeah, it's the next milestone, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I was trying to look up a quote and I couldn't find it, but there was a quote by Sting that I read that was, I'm pretty sure it was by Sting, that we're all growing into the person we were meant to be.
Ooh, I like that.
I know. That's what I thought that too, because when you were thinking 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, I do feel like there was an evolution and I'm continuing to grow into the person I'm meant to be.
I love it. I love the evolution too. And part of midlife and celebrating is always becoming better, right? Striving for the best version of yourself. Boy,
Right.
didn't we throw out the door a long time ago trying to be somebody else?
Yeah. Yes. Completely. Yes. And so that was the other thing in this book, the voice in your head. That's the trying to be someone else, trying to sometimes the voice in our head is like, what are people going to think of me if I say this? What are people going to think of me? Like, I want to make sure I please people or I don't disappoint somebody, or like there's always that stuff that is keeping us from being our true self because that it's that voice in our head trying to control us and keep us reined in. And I think my voice has gotten smaller and smaller, and
Hmm?
it's not driving all my decisions.
Damn voice in our head all the time, right?
Have you, I'm telling you, I've like been so intentional lately. I was thinking about something the other day and I can't remember what it was. I'm like, I just need to let that go. And I just was like, I let it go. And I was like, later that day, I was like, oh my gosh, wasn't that wonderful. Like I didn't think about it the rest of the day. It was lovely. Which
The voice does come in handy to tell us to stop it. I always think there's a little skit. Oh my gosh, this had to have been 15 years ago. We were using a life coach, and a group of us at the CPA firm, and he would play this skit from oh gosh, what's this word? Newhart, Bob Newhart.
oh
And Bob
yeah.
Newhart in this skit would tell this gal, stop it, STOP, space, IT, stop it. And so my little voice in my head when I'm doing something will say, stop it, STOP, IT, stop it. And now it could probably be a GIF, right? Or a meme. I should probably find that.
There you go.
Voice in our head, if the voice in our head is giving us good advice, then it's good. If the voice in our head is having us spin unnecessary circles, it is bad.
Right. And getting us upset or getting us stressed or whatever it is. Yeah, let it go. Yes. All right. Well, so how do you celebrate midlife? Like, what do you, when you think of a celebration, aside from not measuring ourselves against other people, like, is there something that you're really doing different that you feel like you're celebrating?
I think I celebrate every moment because all these years of experience have given me the brain power to not waste time, right? So I don't feel like much time gets thrown out the door. I feel like when I go to bed at night, my days are pretty full of a lot of good things. It could be just reading a book, right? It could be, but yeah, my time, my minutes are well spent. And I would tell you that's probably my biggest celebration. And I do a variety of things, right? Fun, conversation, just having dinner with my husband and having a good conversation for an hour. It's, I think we become wise, right? To know that time is precious. And yeah, I used to whittle a lot of time away, right? With time in my brain, unproductive things, unnecessary things.
Yeah.
What do
I
you,
would say yes. I love that, just spending time doing things that make you feel useful, productive. It's just
right?
make your day feel full. I would say the way I'm celebrating, I feel like that it's this freedom that's all of a sudden a freedom, like my
Oh, I like
time.
that.
Yeah, it's a like this feeling of freedom to do different things. So we went out to eat with some friends on Friday night and came home, and I was supposed to just meet this person for happy hour, and I picked a place nearby. Came home, and Tom and I were like looking at each other. We're like, all right, we need to start trying different restaurants. We have access to this whole city, and we keep going to this one, and it's great. I love this one.
Right.
It's just like, you're right. And so it's this freedom. And when before midlife, I didn't really have all that freedom because we were looking for something quick, convenient. Like time was a little bit, tighter. And so, yeah, a Sunday morning, I thought about it. I was like, this is so fun because we took the streetcar, we walked about a
Hmm.
mile, went to brunch, then walked about a mile and a half, and, then did a little grocery shop. Like we just did the whole freedom. We had all the time in the world. It was fun.
I remember being Bucky when my kids were young and, charging by the hour. If somebody, wanted to stiff me on a bill or said, oh, blah, 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 and I would say, and it was very authentic. If I thought I was going to be working for free, I would have been home with my kids. So I'm not going to dispute this. And that I wouldn't use that all the time, but I felt that way. I had to give myself grace once I didn't have the kids in the house to do the same thing for myself, right? So my time is still important, even whether I'm running kids, running a business. So I'm more selective about what I say no to, what I say yes to. And that's okay because the freedom of having our time to ourselves is a gift, right?
Right.
Try new
Yeah.
things, but you don't have to do everything.
Right. Exactly. 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 Well, I will tell you, there's a whole book on midlife celebration, which I didn't know. And
Really?
But yeah, I was digging into this, you know me, like
Yep.
digging, trying to find stuff. And there's also this thing called menopause parties. It's
You know
like,
what? I think I've definitely seen things like on Instagram or somewhere on those. They look like fun.
yeah, it's celebrating middle aged without the shame and stigma. And it's just these women getting together and just having a good old time. It's
Love it.
almost like a trip. A lot of them are doing like, going places with other women in the same boat and just doing a whole celebration, this phase of life.
Ooh, I love it. I'm gonna have to look into that. We'll definitely post that one in the notes. Anything on that?
I will. I know. I
We
thought
want
that
to
was,
hear from the listeners. If you do a menopause party, we want to hear and see all about it.
I know, and invite us,
And invite us. We'd love to come.
right? That would be fun. All right. Well, I think this has been a good conversation. I love the concept of celebrating and not putting the word crisis on it.
Exactly. So let's keep on celebrating.
Yes, let's do. All right. Thanks, Sandy.
Bye, Amy. Thank you.